So many people are confused about the title of Grandmaster. I think it's time to set the record straight.
And every day I practice martial arts.
Watch out.
Word is I'm a kung fu genius.
So I wrote about this Grandmaster topic in a recent edition of Wing Chun Illustrated. If you haven't checked that out yet, go ahead and do it. By the way, if you don't have a subscription to Wing Chun Illustrated, I highly recommend you go ahead and get one right now. I'll wait. So in general, I find the term Grandmaster a bit anachronistic. It made sense in the old days where there was like one singular head of a martial arts style. But nowadays, especially in Wing Chun, the styles are so fragmented. There's so many different lineages within Wing Chun that there really is no unified head. Even within the subsets of Wing Chun, you really don't have a unified head of any of the styles. So for that reason, I feel that the title doesn't really make any sense anymore. So there's some Grandmasters already in the established associations. I think that's okay. Moving forward, however, I think the title is unnecessary. Especially now that Wing Chun is so fragmented, you have so many different schools that if someone has the title of Grandmaster within the XYZ Wing Chun school, well, the ABC Wing Chun school doesn't really recognize that. So this whole idea of having a title of Grandmaster doesn't really give anyone any prestige or any position over anybody else. So its original aim, which was a distinction, doesn't really hold water anymore. So I like to use the title when I refer to the old passed away masters or like the really old senior established guys who are around today. But there's so many guys out there with the title of Grandmaster who are like around my age that it's absolutely ridiculous. So different styles of Kung Fu might have different regulations, different ideas about this. Some are really big on all these titles. Some are not big on them at all. Within Wing Chun, it's kind of all over the place. But it just seems lately that not just in WT, but in the greater Wing Chun community, everyone is a Grandmaster. So if we look at the history of the use of the title of Grandmaster within Wing Chun, you'll actually look around and see that all these people who have the title are not really following the real tradition of Wing Chun at all. So the term Grandmaster is different from terms like Sifu or Sigong in that it's not a family term, but rather it's a distinction within the greater martial arts community or within a specific lineage of martial arts. In Chinese, there are two terms that can be roughly translated as Grandmaster into English. The first term is 掌門人, and this means something like keeper of the gate. And this is usually applied when there's a sole successor to a style of martial arts, which makes it kind of rare these days. The second term is 宗師, and this is a more generic term for great master or great scholar within a tradition. And this is the term that most people use nowadays in Chinese when they discuss Grandmaster. In fact, in the 1972 New Martial Hero magazine, they referred to him as 宗師 in that magazine. And they would be using that as an honorific. But the thing that needs to be understood is Grandmaster Yip Man at that time didn't ask people to call him that. To his own students, he was just Sifu, and to the greater martial arts community, he was Yip Sifu. They would address him by his name. And by the way, it's Yip. It's not Ip, and it's certainly not IP. So that's the thing. In terms of Wing Chun, okay, and people can argue, especially outside of the Yip Man lineage, but let's just talk about the Yip Man lineage for a moment. Within that style, we can all argue that Yip Man is probably the legit Grandmaster of our style, being that we are from the Yip Man lineage. And even he did not ask people to call him that. That's something the magazine called him as an honorific, but it's not something that he asked people to call him. It's not something that was on his business card. As a matter of fact, if you ever see Yip Man's old business card and you look at it, it just said Yip Man. So if that guy didn't ask people to call him that, it's kind of weird when some random dudes in Europe insist on being called Grandmaster, especially when they gave the title to themselves. So since the term 宗師 is a lot more common, that's the one that we're going to talk about. The term 掌門人 is a lot less common these days. So the term Grandmaster is a distinction bestowed upon a senior Sifu by the greater martial arts community. And it's not something given to oneself. Now, while there's some people who legitimately have the title of Grandmaster given to them by their teacher, I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about all the self-titled Grandmasters, especially those who come from the WT lineage. It's the height of egocentric behavior to give yourself the title of Grandmaster. And I'm aware that some of these guys who've given themselves the title had their students collectively sign a certificate that they're a Dai Sifu or they're a Grandmaster. If you need to crowdsource your own students to write a certificate that you're a Grandmaster, you might not be a Grandmaster. And other guys, they do it slightly differently. They take a couple lessons from some Chinese master and ask that guy, or usually pay that guy a lot of money to write him a certificate that they themselves are now a Grandmaster. If someone you barely know gave you a certificate that says you're a Grandmaster, you might not be a Grandmaster. And if we think of the traditional Chinese martial art virtues, I always wonder, which is the martial virtue where you give yourself the title of Grandmaster? Yeah, I haven't found it either. After all, what's wrong with just being a Sifu? Is the title not good enough anymore? And if you're not in the WT lineage, this probably doesn't make that much sense, but all the guys in WT who give themselves the title of Grandmaster always give themselves the gold stripes. So I always scratch my head when I think about this. Like, the guys in Wing Chun in general, when they give themselves the title Grandmaster, do they really think that they wrote their own invitation to be considered as, I don't know, in the same room as this guy? And when it comes to WT in particular, do those guys really think that they're in the same room as this guy or this guy? And if they're from Europe, they definitely think they know more than this guy. And even though this guy didn't use the title Grandmaster, they kind of put themselves as if they're in the same room as that guy too. And I'm sure when they look in the mirror and see their gold stripes and their fake Grandmaster certificate hanging on the wall, they might even see this guy. But I got news for them. Outside of the little bubble of their school, the greater martial arts community doesn't look at those guys as being in the same room as any of these guys. They look at them like this guy. And that's all I got to say about that.